Nobody inside Romano's grill noticed the terrified waitress. She smiled, served coffee, cleared empty plates, and silently counted every second. Because a man sitting only 3 tables away had a loaded gun hidden beneath the table, and another man had just walked through the front door. The most feared mafia boss in the city. Emily couldn't scream. She couldn't call the police. She couldn't even whisper for help. So she did something almost no one would understand. While pouring his coffee, she moved only her fingers. "Help me. He has a weapon." The mafia boss never looked at her. He never flinched. He simply picked up his coffee as if nothing had happened. But in that exact moment, he realized the frightened waitress wasn't trying to save herself. She was trying to stop a war that had already begun. And before the day was over, the city's most powerful criminal organization would be fighting to protect the one waitress everyone else believed was just another victim. Before we begin, comment "silent courage" if you believe one brave decision can change countless lives. Now, let's begin. At exactly 12:10 every afternoon, Romano's grill became impossible to hear. Waiters rushed between crowded tables, plates clattered, children laughed, businessmen argued over contracts, coffee machines hissed without stopping. To everyone inside, it was another ordinary lunch rush. To Emily Carter, it was another day she hoped to survive. She adjusted the small black apron around her waist before picking up 3 fresh plates from the kitchen counter. "Table 9, the chef shouted. "I've got it." Emily smiled automatically. It wasn't a fake smile, not completely. She genuinely loved serving people. She loved watching families celebrate birthdays. She loved remembering regular customers' favorite meals. She loved helping elderly couples carry leftovers to their cars. Working as a waitress wasn't the dream she'd imagined as a little girl, but it had become something more important. It paid the rent, it kept her younger sister in college, and every extra dollar in tips brought Lily one step closer to graduating as a nurse. That dream mattered more than Emily's own. Morning sunshine. The restaurant manager walked past carrying menus. "You've already charmed half the customers." Emily laughed softly. "I'm trying to charm the other half." The manager smiled. "That's why people keep coming back." Emily simply nodded. Very few people knew how difficult it had been to learn smiling again. 3 years earlier, she had almost forgotten how. She placed fresh coffee beside an elderly couple. The husband smiled. "You always remember 2 sugars." Emily winked. "You've ordered the same coffee every Tuesday for almost a year." His wife laughed. "I keep telling him someone's paying attention." Emily smiled warmly before moving toward another table. Small moments like these reminded her that kindness mattered, even when life wasn't kind in return. Her phone vibrated inside her apron pocket. She quickly glanced at the screen. "Lily, Kilmia," Emily answered immediately. "Hey." Her younger sister sounded exhausted. "I finished my anatomy exam." "How'd it go?" "I think." Lily laughed nervously. "I only forgot 5 answers." Emily smiled. "Then you probably passed." "I hope." There was a short silence. Then Lily spoke quietly. "Did you eat breakfast?" Emily rolled her eyes. "We're not doing this again." "You skipped it." "I was busy. You always say that." Emily looked toward the dining room. "I'll eat after lunch. Promise?" "I promise." Lily finally laughed. "I love you. I love you more." Emily ended the call with a smile. She had practically raised Lily after their parents died in a highway accident 8 years earlier. Everything Emily did, she did for her sister. Outside, a black luxury SUV slowly stopped across the street. Nobody inside the restaurant noticed, except the elderly valet. The rear passenger door opened. Polished black shoes stepped onto the pavement. Then another pair. 4 men in tailored black suits quietly surrounded the vehicle. No panic, no shouting, no unnecessary movement, only discipline. Finally, a tall man stepped out. Nearly 6'3", broad shoulders, perfectly tailored charcoal suit, dark hair slicked neatly backward. Black and grey tattoos disappeared beneath the collar of his expensive shirt before reappearing along one powerful hand. His expression revealed absolutely nothing. Damien Moretti, one of the most feared men in the city. The valet immediately straightened. "Good afternoon, Mr. Moretti." Damien nodded politely. "Afternoon." He walked toward the restaurant entrance without looking around. He never needed to. His bodyguards watched everything for him. Inside, Emily picked up another order, table 6. As she walked through the dining room, the front door opened. Almost every employee instinctively looked toward the entrance, not because they recognized Damien, because powerful people naturally drew attention. Emily glanced up for barely a second before continuing toward her customers. Just another wealthy businessman, nothing more. She had no idea who he really was. Damien quietly chose the corner booth facing the entire restaurant. He always preferred seeing every entrance, every exit, every customer. His bodyguards positioned themselves naturally around the room, one near the entrance, one beside the bar. 2 remained outside. To anyone watching, they looked like ordinary businessmen. Only Damien knew every one of them was armed. He picked up the menu. Without opening it, he ordered the same lunch every Tuesday. Grilled salmon, sparkling water, black coffee. Routine kept people alive. Meanwhile, Emily entered the kitchen. "Order for booth 7. The chef nodded. As she waited, her smile slowly disappeared. She didn't know why. Something suddenly felt wrong. She couldn't explain it. Years earlier, her father had called it instinct. When your heart tells you something isn't right, listen. Emily looked toward the dining room. Everything appeared perfectly normal. Customers laughed. Music played softly overhead. Nothing looked dangerous. Still, that strange feeling refused to disappear. The front entrance opened again. A man wearing a blue checked shirt stepped inside. Average height, clean haircut, friendly smile. He looked like any ordinary office worker grabbing lunch. Emily saw him, and every color drained from her face. Jacob. Her breathing stopped. No, he wasn't supposed to know she worked here. Not after the restraining order. Not after she had moved apartments. Not after changing her phone number. Jacob smiled the moment their eyes met. Not a happy smile, a victorious one, as though he'd finally found something he'd spent years searching for. Emily quickly looked away. Maybe, if she ignored him, he would leave. The hostess greeted him warmly. "Table for 1?" Jacob smiled. If possible. His eyes never left Emily. "I'd like to be served by her." The hostess looked toward Emily. "She's one of our best waitresses." Emily felt her stomach tighten. "No," she whispered to herself. "Please." The manager walked over carrying reservation cards. "Emily," he smiled. "Customer specifically requested you." She tried to answer. Nothing came out. "You okay?" Emily forced a smile. "Just a headache." "You can take a break after this table." She nodded, slowly picked up a menu, and walked toward Jacob. Every step felt heavier than the last. Jacob looked completely relaxed, as though meeting an old friend. "There you are." His voice sounded warm enough for nearby customers to hear. "I've missed you." Emily remained standing, professional, expressionless. "What would you like to order?" Jacob didn't even touch the menu. Instead, he quietly slid one hand beneath the table, then leaned forward, just enough for only Emily to hear. "I told you." His smile never faded. "You could never hide from me." Emily froze, very slowly. Her eyes dropped beneath the edge of the table, resting against Jacob's thigh. Hidden from every customer inside the restaurant was the cold black grip of a loaded pistol. Jacob continued smiling at the families around them. "If you scream," he whispered, "the first person who dies won't be you." Emily's heart stopped. Across the restaurant, without realizing it, Damien Moretti looked up from his untouched coffee, and for the first time, he noticed the terrified waitress standing perfectly still beside table 17. Emily forced herself to keep breathing, not too fast, not too slow. If Jacob noticed even the slightest panic, someone innocent could die. She lowered her eyes just long enough to confirm what she'd already feared. The pistol was real, black, loaded. His finger rested casually beside the trigger beneath the tablecloth. Then, as if they were old friends catching up, Jacob smiled warmly. "So," he said loud enough for nearby customers to hear, "how have you been?" Emily tightened her grip around the menu. "I've been working." "Still taking care of Lily?" Her heart skipped. He knew about her sister. He had been watching them. Emily's voice remained calm. "What would you like to order?" Jacob chuckled. "You always change the subject." He finally opened the menu. "I'll have the grilled chicken." Emily quickly wrote it down. "And the mashed potatoes." She nodded. "Anything to drink?" Jacob leaned slightly forward. His smile disappeared for the first time. "Listen carefully." His voice became barely audible. "In about 15 minutes, a man inside this restaurant is going to make a very expensive mistake." Emily felt cold. "You are going to keep smiling. You are going to keep serving customers, and if you warn anyone," his thumb gently touched the pistol, "your sister dies before sunset." Emily couldn't answer. Jacob smiled again. Now he handed her the menu. "Intern Hund. Thank you for the wonderful service." She forced herself to smile. "My pleasure." Then walked away. Every step felt unreal. She entered the kitchen and placed the order on the counter. The chef looked at her. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "You look pale." "It's just hot in here." The chef laughed. "It always is." Emily nodded, but her mind was racing. Who was Jacob talking about? A man inside the restaurant? Who? A businessman? A judge? Someone random? Or? Her eyes slowly drifted toward the corner booth. Damien Moretti, the only customer surrounded by discreet bodyguards. The only customer everyone instinctively respected. Emily frowned. No, Jacob couldn't know who he really was, could he? Meanwhile, Damien quietly stirred his coffee without drinking it. Marco leaned closer. "You've been watching that Waitress," Damien replied without looking up. "I've been watching Fear." Marco followed his gaze. Emily moved naturally between tables, but something wasn't right. She smiled, yet her shoulders remained tense. She laughed with customers, yet her eyes constantly returned to table 17. Marco whispered, "Someone threatening her." "I think so. You want me to check?" "Not yet." Marco looked surprised. Damien calmly folded his napkin. If someone brings a gun into a crowded restaurant, they're rarely working alone. Across the room, Emily served another family. A little boy accidentally knocked over his orange juice. "I'm sorry." Emily smiled warmly. "No worries." She quickly cleaned the table. The boy looked embarrassed. "My mum says I'm clumsy." Emily laughed softly. "My little sister spilled an entire birthday cake once." The boy giggled. For a few seconds, everything felt normal again. Then she looked toward Jacob. He was watching her, still smiling, still waiting. Her phone vibrated inside her apron. One message, unknown number. "Look outside." Emily slowly turned toward the front windows. Across the street, a black delivery van had just parked. 3 men remained inside. None got out. None looked toward the restaurant. Yet something about them made her stomach tighten. Another message arrived. "They aren't here for you." Emily's hands trembled. If they weren't here for her, then who? She looked back toward Damien. He was the only person in the restaurant important enough to attract armed men. Suddenly, everything Jacob had said made sense. A man inside this restaurant, not just any man, him, the wealthy customer in the corner booth. Emily looked around desperately. She couldn't call the police. Jacob would see. She couldn't shout. People would panic. She couldn't even warn the manager. He wouldn't believe her. Then a memory surfaced. Her younger brother Noah. Every evening after school, she had practiced sign language with him for hours. Even after Noah passed away, she never forgot those lessons. Her eyes slowly returned to Damien. He was speaking quietly with one of his bodyguards. As he thanked the waiter for bringing coffee, his fingers casually formed one simple sign beneath the table. "Thank you." Emily froze. He knew sign language. Her heartbeat quickened. This was her only chance, not to save herself, but to stop whatever Jacob had planned. She picked up Damien's coffee pot, straightened her apron, and slowly began walking toward the corner booth, completely unaware that Jacob had already noticed exactly where she was going. Emily forced herself to keep walking, not too fast, not too slow. The coffee pot suddenly felt twice as heavy in her hands. Every step toward Damien's table felt like stepping onto thin ice. Behind her, Jacob watched without blinking. His smile slowly faded. He didn't move. He simply rested one hand beneath the table, waiting. Across the restaurant, Damien casually looked out the window, but every reflection inside the glass told him exactly what was happening behind him. The frightened waitress was approaching. Table 17 was watching her, and the black delivery van across the street still hadn't moved. Nothing about this was random. Emily finally reached Damien's table. "Would you like a refill, sir?" Her voice sounded calm. Inside, she was terrified. Damien pushed his coffee cup slightly forward. "Please." Emily began pouring fresh coffee. To everyone around them, it looked like an ordinary conversation. Customers continued eating. The manager greeted new guests near the entrance. Soft piano music played through hidden speakers. Nobody noticed Emily's trembling fingers beneath the table. She never looked directly at Damien. Instead, she slowly formed 6 silent words with one hand. "Help me. He has a weapon." Damien didn't react, not even a blink. For almost 3 seconds, nothing happened. Emily's heart sank. Maybe he hadn't understood. Then Damien calmly lifted his spoon and answered using only his fingers beneath the edge of the table. "Where is he?" Emily almost gasped. He really understood. Keeping her smile perfectly natural, she reached for the sugar bowl beside Jacob's side of the restaurant. Without turning her head, she moved 2 fingers. Table 17. Damien gave the smallest possible nod, then casually picked up his coffee as though discussing the weather. "Thank you," Emily quietly replied. "You're welcome." She walked away. Only after reaching the service station did she allow herself to breathe. For the first time since Jacob arrived, she wasn't alone anymore. Marco leaned slightly closer. "Boss." Damien never looked at him. The waitress wasn't asking for herself. Marco frowned. "What?" Damien's eyes remained fixed on the restaurant window. "She believes I'm the target." Marco's expression hardened. "You sure?" Damien nodded once. The gunman isn't looking at her anymore. Marco carefully glanced toward Jacob. Damien was right. Jacob wasn't watching Emily. His attention stayed locked on Damien, almost like he was waiting for something. Marco whispered, "I can take him now." "No." Damien's answer came instantly. "Not yet, but he has a gun, and someone else has the plan." Marco understood immediately. Professional operations always had layers. The visible threat usually wasn't the real threat. Across the restaurant, Jacob slowly checked his expensive watch. 1:27 p.m. 3 minutes, he smiled. Everything was perfectly on schedule. Emily noticed. 3 minutes until what? Her phone vibrated again. Another unknown message. "Don't let him leave the restaurant." Emily froze. Her blood ran cold. The message wasn't telling her to kill Damien. It wasn't even telling her to warn Jacob. It simply wanted Damien to stay exactly where he was. Why? Before she could think, another message appeared. "Keep him inside until 1:30. Emily's breathing became shallow. This wasn't about the gun. The gun was only keeping everyone under control. Something else was about to happen. Something outside. She slowly looked toward the street. The black delivery van remained parked. Its engine was still running. Nobody got out. Nobody moved. It was simply waiting. Damien noticed the same thing. Waiting vehicles made him nervous. Moving vehicles were predictable. Parked ones usually weren't. He quietly reached for his phone. Instead of making a call, he opened a secure tracking application. One blue dot marked his armored SUV parked behind the restaurant. Everything appeared normal. Then, the signal suddenly disappeared. Damien's eyes narrowed. His SUV hadn't moved. Someone had disabled its tracker without touching it. Only one group possessed that technology. Military-trained professionals. This wasn't an angry ex-boyfriend. This was an organized operation. Inside the kitchen, a young dishwasher hurried toward Emily. Someone dropped this. He handed her a small silver bracelet. Emily smiled weakly. "Thank you." As she reached for it, she noticed a folded receipt tucked underneath. No one else seemed to notice it. She carefully unfolded the paper. Only 4 handwritten words appeared. "Check the back exit." Emily frowned. Who wrote this? The handwriting didn't belong to Jacob. It certainly wasn't hers. She quickly looked around. Nobody watched her. She quietly slipped the receipt into her apron. Something inside told her to ignore it. Something stronger told her not to. At exactly 1:28, the restaurant lights flickered once. Just once. Several customers looked up. The manager laughed awkwardly. Probably the storm. Outside, dark clouds had begun covering the afternoon sky. Thunder echoed somewhere in the distance. Jacob smiled wider. He whispered almost silently, "Right on time." Damien heard him, not the words, the confidence. Confident men followed schedules. Damien slowly stood from his chair. Every bodyguard inside the restaurant instantly became alert. Jacob noticed. His smile disappeared. For the first time, something hadn't gone according to plan. Emily looked from Damien to Jacob, then toward the black van outside. She suddenly realized something terrifying. The attack wasn't going to happen inside Romano's grill. The restaurant had only been designed to keep Damien trapped while someone else prepared the real attack somewhere beyond those walls. And whatever was waiting outside would begin the moment Damien walked through the front door. The restaurant doors opened. A cool breeze rushed inside. Damien didn't take another step. Instead, he quietly looked at Marco. Rear exit. Marco immediately understood. The front entrance was too obvious. If someone wanted Damien outside, he wasn't going to give them what they wanted. Without creating panic, Marco spoke into the tiny microphone hidden beneath his collar. "Alpha Team, kitchen, now." 3 undercover bodyguards stood naturally from their tables. To everyone else, they looked like customers leaving after lunch. Only Emily noticed they were all moving toward the kitchen. Damien looked at her. "Come with us." Emily froze. "What?" "If you stay here," he said calmly, "you're exactly where they want you." She looked toward Jacob. He was pretending to read the menu, but his eyes had already darkened. He knew something had changed. Emily swallowed hard. "My manager. Forget your manager." Damien's voice remained calm. "If you want your sister alive, walk." Those words hit her like lightning. "How do you know about Lily?" Damien didn't answer. He simply turned toward the kitchen. Emily followed. The moment they disappeared through the swinging kitchen doors, Jacob stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. The restaurant manager smiled politely. "Leaving already, sir?" Jacob ignored him. Instead, he pulled out his phone. Only one sentence left his mouth. "They're using the back." Then he ended the call. Outside, the black delivery van immediately pulled away from the curb. Its engine roared to life, not toward the restaurant, toward the alley behind it. Emily hurried through the busy kitchen beside Damien. Chefs continued cooking, completely unaware of what was happening. Marco pushed open a heavy steel service door. Bright afternoon sunlight flooded the narrow alley behind the restaurant. Damien stopped. Something wasn't right. Too quiet. No delivery trucks. No workers. No pedestrians. Just silence. Marco slowly drew his pistol beneath his jacket. "Boss, I don't like this." "Neither do I," Damien replied. Suddenly, a deafening explosion echoed from the front of the building. Boom! The entire kitchen shook. Plates crashed onto the floor. Customers screamed inside the restaurant. Emily instinctively covered her ears. What was that? Marco looked toward the front street. Our SUV. Black smoke rose above nearby rooftops. The armored vehicle Damien had arrived in was now a burning wreck. Emily stared in disbelief. If we'd walked out the front, Damien finished her sentence, we'd already be dead. For the first time since entering the restaurant, even Damien looked genuinely disturbed. This wasn't intimidation, it was an execution. Someone had planned every second. The fake gunman, the restaurant, the delivery van, the bomb. Every piece fit together perfectly. Marco's radio suddenly crackled. "Boss!" One of the guards still inside the restaurant shouted. The suspect escaped. Jacob was gone. Damien wasn't surprised. He was never supposed to stay. Emily looked at him. "You knew?" He was buying time. But for who? Damien slowly turned toward the burning smoke rising above the city. "That's what we're about to find out." A black luxury SUV suddenly entered the alley. Not Damien's. Another one. The rear door opened immediately. Marco checked the license plate. "Our backup vehicle." Damien nodded. "Move." Emily hesitated. "I can't leave. My sister." Damien looked directly into her eyes. "What's her name?" "Lily." He pulled out his phone, made one call, only 4 words. "Bring Lily to Haven." Then he ended it. Emily frowned. "Who was that?" "The only people I trust. You don't even know me." Damien's expression softened slightly. "No, but someone just tried to kill me. And they threatened your sister. That makes our problems the same." Emily didn't know what to say. Everything was happening too fast. She climbed into the SUV. Marco closed the door. The vehicle sped away from the restaurant. 5 minutes later, they crossed the city bridge. Emily looked through the tinted window. Police cars raced toward Romano's grill. Fire trucks followed. News helicopters circled overhead. By tonight, every television station would report a restaurant bombing. Nobody would know. The real target had never been the restaurant. It had always been Damien Moretti. Inside the SUV, silence filled the cabin. Until Damien finally spoke. "I need you to tell me something." Emily nodded. "What?" "Has Jacob ever asked you about me before today?" She thought carefully, then slowly shook her head. "No. He never mentioned your name. He only asked one strange question." Damien looked at her. "What question?" Emily's voice became almost a whisper. "He kept asking if I still remembered the man in room 614. The SUV suddenly became silent. Marco's eyes met Damien's in the rearview mirror. Neither man spoke, but both recognized that number instantly. Room 604. 3 years earlier, a powerful businessman had been murdered inside Suite 604 of the Grand Imperial Hotel. The case had disappeared overnight. No witnesses, no arrests, no evidence. Damien slowly leaned back in his seat. Now he understood. Emily wasn't randomly chosen. She wasn't just a frightened waitress. 3 years ago, without realizing it, she had witnessed something that someone was still willing to kill for. And if that was true, the people chasing her weren't finished. They had only just begun. The operations room fell completely silent. Every eye remained fixed on the frozen security image. Richard Viscari, Damien's father's personal lawyer, the man everyone trusted. The man Emily had seen walking out of room 614 3 years ago. Marco finally broke the silence. "Boss, give the order." Damien slowly shook his head. "No." Marco frowned. "We know where he is." "No," Damien replied quietly. "We know where he wants us to go." He enlarged the image. Richard wasn't standing alone. Behind him, barely visible in the reflection, was the old Grand Imperial Hotel, room 614. Emily's heartbeat accelerated. "He's back." Damien looked at her. "He isn't hiding. He's inviting us." 30 minutes later, 3 black SUVs rolled quietly into the underground parking garage of the abandoned Grand Imperial Hotel. Rain poured across the empty streets. The once luxurious building had been closed for years. Broken windows, dark hallways, dust covered every floor. Emily stared at the entrance. "I never wanted to come back here." Damien looked at her calmly. Sometimes, the only way to escape your past is to walk straight through it. Marco signaled the security team. 8 armed guards silently spread through the building. No sirens, no police. Richard had friends everywhere. This had to end tonight. The old elevator no longer worked. They climbed 6 flights of stairs. Every step echoed through the abandoned hotel. Emily stopped outside one familiar hallway. "I remember this carpet," she whispered. "The wallpaper, it hasn't changed." Her breathing became heavier. Room 6-14 stood at the end of the corridor. Its door was already open. Inside, a single desk lamp illuminated the room. Richard Viscari stood beside the window in a perfectly tailored grey suit. A glass of wine rested in one hand. He smiled. "I've been expecting you." Damien stepped forward. "You murdered my father's advisor." Richard laughed softly. "No, I protected your family's future." Emily stared at him. "You ruined my life." Richard finally looked at her. "No, Emily, you ruined your own. You should have kept walking that night." Without warning, 2 armed men emerged from the adjoining room, weapons raised. Marco reacted instantly. Down. Gunfire exploded through the hallway. Glass shattered. Bullets tore through old furniture. Damien pushed Emily behind a concrete pillar. His guards returned fire. The corridor filled with smoke. Richard calmly backed toward the second exit. He had no intention of fighting. He intended to escape. Emily suddenly noticed something. The emergency staircase. Richard wasn't running toward the roof. He was heading toward the basement. "Damien," she shouted. "He's going downstairs." Richard glanced back. For the first time, his calm expression disappeared. Emily had seen the hidden exit. He fired one desperate shot toward her. Time seemed to stop. Damien turned, but he was too far away. Emily instinctively shoved him aside. The bullet struck the marble wall where Damien had been standing only a second earlier. Richard disappeared through the stairwell door. "Go," Damien ordered. Marco and 4 guards chased him downstairs. Seconds later, a violent struggle echoed beneath the building. Then, silence. Emily slowly lowered her shaking hands. Damien looked at the bullet hole beside them. "You just saved my life." Emily smiled weakly. "You would have done the same." A minute later, Marco's voice echoed from below. "Boss, we've got him." Damien and Emily hurried downstairs. Richard lay handcuffed against a concrete pillar. Around him, dozens of hidden filing cabinets filled the underground vault. Boxes, hard drives, financial ledgers, photographs, every secret the Empire had been searching for. Marco looked stunned. This wasn't just evidence. It was his insurance policy. Richard smiled bitterly. "I spent 12 years stealing your empire, and one waitress destroyed everything." Emily looked directly into his eyes. "No, you destroyed yourself." 3 days later, the city woke to shocking headlines. A powerful attorney arrested. A decades-old conspiracy exposed. Millions of dollars in stolen assets recovered. For the first time in years, Emily walked to work without looking over her shoulder, but she never returned to Romano's Grill. She didn't have to. Damien quietly purchased the restaurant, not for himself, for Emily. On the opening day, a new sign hung above the entrance, Emily's Kitchen. Lily graduated from nursing school 6 months later. She hugged her sister tightly. "You finally get to live your own life." Emily smiled. "I think I'm finally ready." Across the street, a black luxury SUV stopped for only a moment. Damien stepped out alone. No bodyguards, no weapons, no suits following behind him. He entered the restaurant carrying a small wooden box. Inside rested a silver bracelet. Emily immediately recognized it. The bracelet she had lost the day everything changed. "I thought it was gone." Damien smiled. "So did I." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Words suddenly felt unnecessary. Damien slowly raised one hand, using the same silent language that had connected 2 strangers inside a crowded restaurant. He signed 4 simple words. "Thank you for saving me." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She answered with a gentle smile and signed back. You listened. Damien nodded. Most people hear voices, but the bravest people know how to hear silence. He quietly walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back one final time. Emily, you didn't save a mafia boss. You saved every innocent person who would have suffered because of one man's greed. Emily watched him disappear into the afternoon sunlight. 3 years earlier, fear had stolen her voice, but on one ordinary afternoon, inside a crowded restaurant, 6 silent words changed everything. Help me, he has a weapon. Those words didn't just save a life, they saved an empire. The end.